and it's so important to say yes to everything, and it's so important to stay late and to take on everything you can and just soak up as much information as you can, because those are the years that you that are so valuable for learning. But yeah, so that was super valuable. And then I would say another important lesson was just the importance of who the people are, and that when you have the right people around the table, that you can get through any problem. And related to that is to be focused, that you have to be focused on solutions. You can't waste time pointing fingers and say, who forgot to do this, or who created this issue that let in the fraud, or who didn't do XYZ. You can't waste your time focusing on that. You have to focus on the solutions and get and get that solved.
Well, welcome to the show. Nathan Newberry here. I have Heather Udo here. That's an amazing entrepreneur that we're going to interview today about her life and her origin story. Heather, happy to have you and joining our show here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about what you got going on. What are you doing in your life and your business? Help us understand what you got going on right now.
Yeah, so right now, so a lot of things going on in my life. So one, I am the founder and CEO of Shoppable, so software CEO for 13 years. Also, for the last about 6 months, I've been coaching first-time CEOs, first-time founders, I should say, which has been really exciting. And also just purchased a new home with my family, mid-century modern house that I started renovating, which is really exciting too. And it's been
That
like a
is
huge
awesome.
part of a huge vision that my husband and I have had. So pretty
That
cool.
is cool. That is cool. Well, tell us a little bit about what inspired all of this. How did you land? What's the origin story? Where did it all begin? What was the crazy things that you grew up with or understood? What was the age? What was the story? Help us dig in there for understanding who you are.
Yeah, so rewinding a little bit. So I think a lot of where a lot of this started is I am one of 8 kids, and so grew up with a big family, and that really made all of my siblings very independent. So I grew up in Wisconsin. Now I'm living in New York. We're all very close, but most of us live in different states now, so we kind of
Yeah.
spread out all over the country. But growing up, we were all very independent and kind of raised to have that independence in a way that to kind of go after what we wanted. And in a way, part of that is from an ambition standpoint, and part of it is monetarily too. So we all had were given chores. I grew up in the country on a hobby farm, and had certain chores, and had a very small allowance that did not buy anything. I think maybe we got a quarter a week.
So
It
was
didn't
this
even
like
buy.
waking up at 4 a.m., milking the cow or something? Like what
I
was that
mean,
upbringing like?
I mean, I built fences around acres of land. I helped bale hay, put bales of hay on, tractors, and shoveled manure in the stalls. You
Yeah.
name it, all that fun stuff.
So the Southern
Um,
work ethic.
Yes, that kind of stuff. But yeah, so real exciting stuff. And at the end of the week, I got a quarter. So lots of work, but it didn't buy anything. Of course, like all kids, you have wants. You want to go to the movies with a friend, and a movie ticket, I can't remember how much it cost, but it was certainly more than that. So anyway, but our parents would say, well, you've got to find a way to make up the difference. So that's kind of what we were taught, and they encouraged us to find other ways. And that's kind of what led to my entrepreneurial ways. And, that kind of, but being in the country, I quickly learned that I had to figure out other means. And some of those means were on the internet and figuring out, how to work eBay and things like that at an early age and things like that. But that's kind of how it really, on the very early days, I got started. And then other things I would say is my parents also, encouraged me to focus on education and moving, and moving. And part of that was going to a good school, and they said, don't worry about staying, feeling like you have to stay close. And that's part of why we ended up in a lot of different places all over the country. So I ended up moving to San Francisco, hence why I ended up becoming a tech entrepreneur.
I was just going to ask that, because I was like, that's pretty sparse from the upbringing you had and being techie, but now the origin story is stepping into San Fran, where everything's at like that. How was that? How old were you then when you moved into that?
So I moved to San Francisco at 18, and part of the reason for me choosing San Francisco was, it was a great school, and part of it was I was leaving Wisconsin, which was freaking cold, and I wanted to go to California. So I'm not gonna lie about that. So I was like, take me to California, please. I need a break from the cold. So that's a couple of reasons why I ended up out there. But I did also love technology. So those things led me out there. And it was, part of it is just fate too, because my first year there, I took an entrepreneurship class too. And my professor was also full-time at Microsoft. And he was incredible, and just was immediately teaching us about venture capital and so many things about Silicon Valley and all of these other things about technology, which I already was, coming from Wisconsin and the small town and growing up on a farm and things like this, I was already the quote unquote tech person of the house. So take that with a grain of salt and what it means. But I was already very interested in technology, but I just was like kind of thrust into it being out in San Francisco, and just that really just exploded while I was out there.
Yeah. And then so you did university, and then when did you spark of actually doing entrepreneurship and starting your own SaaS business? Was that Shoppable, or did you have other companies or did you work with some other startups? Like, help us understand that too.
I did. So while I was in school, I did an internship depending upon the age of people listening, you may or may not have heard of this company. But it's still around, but it's much smaller than it used to be. There's a job board company called Monster.com. It used to be what LinkedIn is today. But they had, I interned for them one summer. And anyway, they had acquired another company. So when I was interning them, I emailed the entrepreneur who had just sold his company to Monster and asked if I could speak with him. because I said I want to start a company one day. Will you like give me 5 minutes of your time? And I thought, he's not even going to respond to my email. But whatever, shoot your shot. You're the, whatever. He probably doesn't know who you are. And he responded, and he didn't know who I was, but he just was like, yeah, come by my office. And
How long did it take you to send that email? Because so many times there's young entrepreneurs, they just don't even have the courage to even do such a thing, let alone call, text, or email. Like,
yeah.
how long did you spend before you pressed that actually send button? Was it a quick
Oh,
thing, or was this something where you dabbled around with for a minute?
No, it probably sat on my desktop for a long time. Yeah, I probably like overthought every word, and spell checked it, and overthought every structure of the sentence, and things like that. And then it was just finally like, you know what? It's probably not even going to bother reading it. Let me just hit send. Put it out there. And it's like with those types of things, my attitude about those things is, make sure, you spell check it and all that. And like, you write it the best you can, but what's the worst that can happen? The worst that can happen is they don't respond. So send it. And then, but what's the worst that could happen if you don't do anything? They're obviously not going to respond because you don't make the effort, right? So you might as well make the effort yourself. So obviously I sent it, and he responded, and then I met with him, and I made a good impression because he said, actually, I'm starting a new company, and why don't you, I have 2 VPs that are going to join the team with me. We're having dinner tonight. Why don't you join us? If you'll sign an NDA, I'll send you, we just have basically a pitch deck right now. That's all it is. And then why don't you, if you're interested, you can join us for dinner, and basically, like, maybe I'll offer you a job.
Yeah.
He wasn't officially offering me the job. And anyway, so I was like, okay, I'll sign the NDA, fine. No problem. So anyway, so I signed the NDA. I read that pitch deck like my life depended on it, and made sure that I came to that dinner prepped with so much value and opinions and all that. And anyway, regardless to say, they offered me a job, and I started working. I got a job before I graduated college. I still got my degree, and then I started working there immediately. So
That's
I stayed.
so cool.
Yeah, so I was the first non-executive person at that startup, and stayed with them. It was the most incredible experience. We ended up exiting after about 4 years. I went with that company from PowerPoint until exit, and working with them, I got an MBA. I got paid to get my MBA with that experience.
Sure.
And then that allowed me to be able to then in turn go and start Shoppable and have that experience. So that's what I did prior to starting my company.
Yeah. See, so many times people think they need to start something on their own, like the brainchild, and some people do the grassroots stuff. But I think the way you did that, and you learned through getting paid for doing it, and you learned everything, that probably helped you so much with building Shoppable, right? And so what were some big takeaways from that, or some principles that you learned from that job that translated into this? Or what would you teach a CEO now from what you've learned all these years?
There's so many incredible lessons from that job. I mean, one would be just the value of an entry-level job, which I think so many people, especially now when I feel like is lost, and part of it is just, maybe it's just what, I know that on TikTok and Instagram, your feeds and stuff are curated to you. So maybe it's just what I see out there. But I do think that some of that is lost on, newer generations. But your first job out of college, or those entry level jobs, it's so important, and it's so important to say yes to everything, and it's so important to um, be the first one in, and to stay to try to stay late, and to take on everything you can, and just soak up as much information as you can, because those are the years you that are so valuable for learning, because
Mm-hmm.
normally, not for everybody, I know every single person is different, but normally you have less dependencies in your life. Usually you don't have kids yet. Normally you don't have mortgages yet. Normally you don't have other things going on, as much going on
Sure.
in your life
Yeah.
yet. And when that's just when you're going to be building, like, those are like the big building blocks. And that's when you really need to understand, like, that's when you're really going to understand the nuances of the job. And you don't
Mm-hmm.
want to, like, rush ahead, like, so fast, and be like, oh, I had a year of marketing, now I'm going to be a CMO, or I had a year of sales, now I'm a CRO, which is what sometimes I find when I'm interviewing people now. People are like, yeah, I interviewed someone for marketing. This was a year ago, and that's what she said. She said, well, I worked for a year of marketing. Now I really want to be a CMO. And I just want you to know that's my expectation. And I said, oh, well, that's not what I would, no, that's not where you would be
Sure.
going now. Thank you for telling
Yeah.
me.
1 year of experience.
um,
Gosh. Yeah.
yeah, but anyway, so that experience was so helpful, and for me, because I was the most junior person there. I started, and but I started, and it was only it was only room to go up, because it was all VPs, and I did everything from marketing research to operations, um, sales, business development, uh, um, account management, etc.
Yeah. You
But
did so
anyway,
much. Yeah.
all of those different things, that then ended up building up teams around those things, that then just leveled up as things grew. But yeah, so that was super super valuable. And then I would say another important lesson was just the importance of who the people are, and that when you have the right people around the table, that you can get through any problem. Um, there were there were several problems that came up at that business, that I thought, this business is toast.
Oh
Because
gosh.
you know and now it's funny, because I'm sure, like, like, I'm sure this as an entrepreneur now too. But it's funny, because at the time, I was 20, what was, like, 23 when I started there, maybe 22. Yeah, 22 maybe. um so I was very inexperienced. But you come across, we were doing lead generation, and it came across, like, one day we came back from a weekend to huge amounts of fraud coming into the system, obviously unintentionally. And I thought, oh my God, we just sent all this fraud to our biggest customers. There's
Mm.
no way we can come back from this. And of course we did. But when you have the right people around the table, you can get through anything. You know how to solve the problem. And that's one of the things that I learned, one of the things that I realized at that business too. And related to that is to be focused, that you have to be focused on solutions. You can't waste time pointing fingers and say, who forgot to do this, or who created this issue that let in the fraud, or who didn't do XYZ. You can't waste your time focusing on that. You have to focus on the solutions and get um, and get that solved. And that's really helped me now with Shoppable and moving forward. And it's funny because now my team is sometimes, when there's a quote unquote big issue or something, sometimes my team is like, how are you so calm right now? They're
Yeah.
like, I can't believe how calm you are with this situation. And I'm like, I've seen it all.
Yeah.
At this point in time. So there's various situations like that that have just really helped for my career.
When you teach CEOs now and you're coaching people, what are some things that you point out that are going to be really helpful for the success of those people? What are some of those things that you outline in your framework, or some principles that you would, help people with now, now with your origin story here and then leading into your own company you run and now your coaching company? What are some things that you would really kind of help people with?
Yeah. So another one I would say that sounds obvious, but people need to be reminded of frequently, is don't reinvent the wheel. So when you're thinking about your tech business and what are you going to build and what are you going to license, or what are you going to borrow or partner on from other companies, sometimes people, especially technologists, get over ambitious with what they want to build out on their own, and they think because they can build it that they should build it. And so I really advise people to be cautious and question about what do they build and what do they really need to own when it comes to their technical solutions if they're building a tech business, because you don't want to reinvent
Did you start off doing your own SaaS and doing software development and building your own? Is that where you started, or did you hire people from that vision you had to help you do that?
We were not SaaS to start. We were B2C.
Okay.
Originally, and then we changed to be SaaS. Similar concept, but we changed to be SaaS about a year in.
Did you go into rounds of like in getting investors and everything too, or did you kind of bootstrap it yourself?
I bootstrapped at the beginning, and then I ended up doing a rolling seed round of about $2 million.
Okay.
And then
I mean, let alone that information and that skill to get investments and stuff is not easy. Like, I'm sure
no,
you had to educate yourself and ask a lot of help, when you needed to be able to figure that out.
oh
Because
yeah,
there's one thing to bootstrap it, right? It gets to a certain level that but then when you're looking at, I got to scale quick, because SaaS it's all about timing. It's to the game, as
yeah,
quick as possible. It seems like to market. Yeah.
that's right.
And so you went through some rounds, it sounds like. And then did you end up hiring out the gate when you got that, or who were some key people that were involved in you building what you have now?
The key people, as far
Yeah,
as
did you have key people, or did you end up doing a lot yourself? Like, how did you end up sorting through that growth of your company?
um, yeah. So some of the key people, as far as like on the helping with the growth, I would say part of the growth came from on the sales side. Came from, if this is the angle you're asking about, came from part of that strategy was with through our advisory. So
Okay.
we used our advisory board to help us knock on the right doors. So because we're enterprise, we had to get the right doors opened. So we created an advisory board and stacked it with advisors that had existing relationships with people who already had those relationships. And they set up the meetings for us, and pretty much already, and then they came to the meetings with me. We co-pitched, and then that helped us get our several of our customers, and that helped with a lot of our growth. Is that what you were asking as far as
The reason why I ask is, it's just interesting how people build their business, or what traits come involved that they're more skilled in. Like I look at like a business in like 4 areas. Like they need to know sales, they need to know how to do marketing, they need to know how to do the fulfillment, because that's what they're promising their customers, right? Either through SaaS or service. And then they need to know leadership to be able to implement the software systems or helping people build teams. Like what were some of those things that, maybe I'm missing a bucket, or that you would have something else, but I would think that would be kind of the 4 things that I've seen so many businesses grow into with those 4 areas. And some of it, they come naturally. It's like some people come with certain ones. What were the skills out of those that you feel like you brought in most that then contributed to the growth of your company? And then what were the people you needed to hire, or you're talking about advisories from those levels of, more advanced skill levels from those areas, or deeper sense of leadership or confidence, or other things that you had to build in? What would you say that you brought in, and what were the things that you had to work on and develop, or stack your team with those other things that you had to grow into?
So, so I'd say it's sales, it's business development, on the business development side, because we have sales is at the obvious side, right? And then business development, because we have to have relationships with all of the merchants. So Shoppable is, in a lot of sense, is a marketplace. We integrate with thousands of different merchants. So we have, like, for example, some of our merchant partners are like Walmart and Sephora and Macy's and Walgreens, etc., Best Buy. So business development is a big piece of it. And obviously engineering is a big part. We've had to solve quite a few engineering, very, very complex engineering problems, and some of them multiple times at different levels. So our product catalog is 500 million SKUs today, and as that got larger and larger, we ran into new problems, because we have to it's a huge data set, and one that you have to update that SKU set multiple times a day, and to be able to refresh that large amount of data, say like every couple hours, it's very, very difficult. And anyway, so there's let's say a large social media site that we were speaking to maybe 2 years ago. We were on a call with them, and I think our product catalog was a little bit smaller than that at the time, and they were telling us that they maybe had 10 million or maybe 100 million SKUs at that time, and they said they hadn't been able to update it even once a day. And our team was significantly smaller than theirs, and they're like, "How are you guys doing this?" Wow. So engineering is certainly a big piece of it, and I would say those are the big pieces. And then those are probably the biggest pieces. Shopper support is what we call it. Customer service is another piece because of the order processing part of it. Mm-hmm. Those are the kind of key pieces for us.
Yeah. What are if you were talking with a skilled person right now, or even a startup entrepreneur who's trying to launch out, what keys of advice that you would give, like off the bat, just like what are the things they need to learn, as like a quick snapshot, or what are the things that they need to build, or what are the things they need to do? Like what I'm gathering so far from your story is like, you got to grind. And at the very beginning, when you have less responsibilities, like focus on that. And then some of the other things that are jumping out at me from what you've built here is that you got to figure out sales. You got to know like some marketing development. You got to know how to do business development. And you need to figure out how to do servicing your clients really well. What am I missing anything, or what other tips or advice or books or things that you would suggest beginner entrepreneurs or people that are still trying to grow into that level of success that they're wanting?
What are the things for them to focus on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, well, so keep the customer at the center of everything is really important. Profit cures everything is another kind of key principle for them to focus on. Make sure, so related to that is just make sure that they have a path to profit out of the gate. So many, I think too many entrepreneurs don't have an idea for revenue when they first get started. So I would say to make sure that you do. Very like not only profit cures all problems, but have a plan for revenue first. Like what is that? Because people get so excited about the idea that they sometimes don't even think about like how will I make money and can I make money. Another thing to think about, and I love this because like a really, really great entrepreneur actually came to the startup that I was at in Silicon Valley when I was there, and he did a talk, and he said, when you're thinking about starting a business, you have to ask yourself, is this a business? Is it a product, or is it a feature? And you have to figure that out before you pour everything into it. Now, if it's a feature, that it's something that could just be like added on to an existing business. Like, if you remember, like Twitter. I'm just gonna keep dating myself with things that I'm bringing up, you guys. So remember, like Twitter 10 years ago, before you could add a photo, there was a business. I can't remember. Was it called like TwitPic or something like that?
Okay.
I think there was like a business that it wasn't really a business. It was a feature that they launched, the ability for you to just create. Upload a photo, but then suddenly Twitter decided to add the feature where you could upload a photo, and then the business doesn't exist anymore, right? So that's a feature, and then you have a product. Then you have something that can be a standalone business. So you just have to ask yourself that before you go and pour everything into a business and figure out, is your business one of those three things? So give it a little bit more thought before you
feature, product, or business.
That's right.
Feature, product, or business. Interesting. That's a good way of doing that. I like that. Yeah. What are some last words of wisdom that you would give the audience here to wrap us up today? What would be helpful to know, ways to grow and scale and be that type of person? What are the last words of wisdom you give?
Last words of wisdom, I would say, Last words of wisdom, I would say being a good person matters. So keep that in mind, and do the work. Keep your head down, and you'll get to where you want to go.
That's fantastic. Appreciate it so much for being on the show today, Heather. Hopefully a lot of people got a lot about, business and growth. And if people wanted to follow you or learn continually what you do, how would people do that?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram's probably the best place to find me. I am Heather, or at Heather_Udo. And I'm also at Heather Udo on LinkedIn.
Right on. Well, I'll link everything down below, but fantastic to have you on here. If you liked more of this, continue to follow along. We'll see you on the next episode.